And several of Steve's colleagues will be joining us throughout the day from the Smithsonian, which of course you know is a venerable U.S. cultural and historical entity, global power. This next speaker right now, give us his thoughts. I last saw him at the Manny Pacquiao boxing match, so I know he loves a good fight. Alfred Nakatsuma is the director of the Office of Environment for USAID in Indonesia. He supervises a $250 million portfolio of programs. He's a money man. Go see him if you need some help. The portfolio includes climate change, forestry, disaster response, and about a half dozen others. Very busy man. He's worked in the Philippines, Guatemala, Bolivia, and now in Indonesia for the past how many years? 5 years. Alfred Nakatsuma, USAID.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera kepada kita semua, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The United States and Indonesia are not only strategic allies, but good friends. We have a lot in common, including values that we cherish. Both are pluralistic, large, transparent democracies. Both have a lot of ethnicities and religions and have moderate and tolerant views towards them. Both value highly the role of women in society. In fact, the relationship between these two countries is so important that we have something called a comprehensive partnership developed by the two governments. Blessed by Presidents Yudhoyono and Barack Obama, chaired by Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton and Minister of Foreign Affairs Martin Natalegawa. This comprehensive partnership addresses a lot of the common challenges that are important to both countries, including enhancing the security and prosperity of the Indonesian people. The comprehensive partnership has 3 pillars and 6 working groups. And one of the working groups is on the environment. With all these important people and all these important issues, why is the environment one of the main topics of this comprehensive partnership? Well, I think there are 2 reasons. One is global. I think the government of Indonesia and the government of the United States both recognize that this country, having been called an environmental superpower, plays a very important role in some of the global issues, particularly climate, both on the mitigation and the adaptation side. Indonesia really is an important country, and the United States government is trying to help Indonesia achieve its goal of 26% reduction in greenhouse gases, and at the same time a 7% increase, 7% economic growth rate. So the global importance of Indonesia is also underlined by its biodiversity, as has been spoken about before. Indonesia probably has the greatest amount of marine biodiversity on the planet. It's certainly one of the top in the world in terms of terrestrial biodiversity. Add them up in the aggregate, Indonesia may be the most biodiverse country on the planet. Why is that important? Well, biodiversity can do a number of things. One is assist with its natural compounds and its germplasm in producing solutions to the major problems that humanity is going to be facing in the future. Not only that, all this life, all this biodiversity supports the stability of global ecosystems, and I think all of us are interested in that. But I don't think that that's the major reason why this is part of the comprehensive partnership. I actually think the most important reason is because the environment is important to the Indonesian people. I've had the great privilege and the pleasure of exploring this extraordinary country. I've had the chance to go out into the field and talk to people, and you know what? They don't know what a germplasm is. They don't know what a greenhouse gas is. And they don't know what a carbon market is. But the natural heritage is really important to the Indonesian people. I've seen it, I've heard it in my own ears. In fact, a large percentage of the Indonesian economy, something like a quarter of it, depend on natural resources. Go ask any fisherman or farmer or forest dweller person. It's important for their food security. It's important for where they live. can attest to that. Not only that, but it's a little bit short of 50% of the employment. Almost 50% of the employment of this country depends on natural resources. Again, go ask the farmers, the fishermen, the forest dwellers. Having spent some time in eastern Indonesia, having been to a lot of the coastal communities, I can tell you that at least 90% of some of these communities depend on the oceans for their income and their food. In fact, some of the statistics say that approximately 60% of the animal protein of Indonesians living within 10 kilometers of the coast comes from the ocean. That's pretty important. So it's really important, both globally as well as locally to Indonesians. And I think the latter is the biggest reason why that's part of the comprehensive partnership. Unfortunately, we're not doing so well. The natural resource base is declining fairly rapidly. Scientists tell us this all the time. It's pretty clear that that's happening. And I think this is leading to a situation that's going to be pretty troublesome for a lot of Indonesians. Again, thinking about coastal communities, I've been to communities where people tell me, older people tell me, I used to go out onto the beach and catch fish with a spear. And what's it like now, Bob? Well, for a while we had to get into our bancas and go quite far out, but we still had enough food for our families. Now, we can't pay enough money. We don't have enough money to pay for the gasoline that it takes us to get out to catch enough fish for our families. Not only that, USAID not too long ago financed a study that said within 10 kilometers of large-scale deforestation, approximately 40% of communities are in conflict. So this is all happening. So what is the U.S. government doing about it? Well, we're trying. In the comprehensive partnership, we do have quite a few U.S. government agencies. The Millennium Challenge Corporation, the United States Agency for International Development, the State Department, even Department of Treasury has a couple debt for nature swaps worth about $60 million in which we're working in Sumatra, Kalimantan. The portfolio, depending on how you count it, certainly hundreds of millions of dollars. We're trying really hard, hand in hand with the government of Indonesia, and hand in hand with a lot of the NGOs, some our friends, some of who are here today. It's great to work with such excellent counterparts, both in the government of Indonesia as well as in the NGO community. But you know what? I think we're short. I don't think we're short in terms of money, actually. I think we're short in terms of approaches, and I think we're short in terms of working with the private sector. I really do. Why? We really are trying to strike a balance between economic growth, jobs, incomes, and the environment. It's a tough nut to crack. But the private sector is the driver of economic growth in this country, and therefore is the key to doing that. It's a market-based problem. I think we need a market-based solution. A lot of the natural resources are disappearing for reasons that relate to price and scarcity in the market and demand, things like that. So I think if we're only dealing with it through non-private sector means, I think we're actually missing the boat. So we're trying to put some of these together. In fact, we have one that we're going to be signing up with the Ministry of Forestry this week. The Walton family, Walmart, Conservation International, and USAID will be teaming up with Sustainable Landscape Partnership to implement private sector approaches. But again, we're short. Yesterday, I was asked by the organizers to find out what AID has been doing with respect to private sector approaches to development. So dutifully, last night I called my colleagues in Washington and I asked them, hey, tell me, what have we been doing? And they gave me a database of information, which I'm going to try to summarize here. We have, USAID has, since 10 years, 1,065 private sector partnerships with 3,000 private sector companies. Wow, that's quite a bit. Really good news. Okay, so they've also leveraged billions of dollars government money, private sector money, working together on environmental development solutions. And I copied a summary of what most of these are about. They include supply chains that meet buyer standards, foster increased business revenues, and raise incomes. Developing new markets for affordable products that meet the needs of those living in developing countries. Developing skilled workers to support growing telecom industries in developing countries. The use of mobile technology for transmitting information on crops and health issues, thereby connecting local buyers and sellers to international markets and improving healthcare. I think we need some of this here. I think we need some of this applied to the environment, and I think we need some of this applied in Indonesia, and I think we can do some of that here today. There are a lot of things that can be done with the private sector. We're not starting from scratch. Private sector companies can give money to charitable organizations and environmental NGOs, and that's nice, that's helpful, but that's we can do better than that. Private sector companies can work with NGOs and the government to address threats, to address the drivers of destructive forces on the environment. It can focus not only on species. Species are important, but I think a better way to get through species is through habitat protection. We can implement best practices. I'm really encouraged to see some people who I know, including Tony Jogo from my staff, Chris Fong, who've worked on best practices with the mining sector, with pulp and paper, with the palm oil industry. Best practices so that these companies can make money, but reduce their impact, and be environmentalists as well. We have some of those tools here today, so please take advantage of that. I trust this information is going to be spread. We can work with sustainable harvesting, not only in a verified, but maybe even a certified mode, so that we can have supply chains that are green. Who knows, maybe we can even promote demand of products so that private sector companies doing this can get a premium and make even more money off of products that are sustainably harvested. Lots of stuff that can be done. We're not starting from scratch. So, in closing, I'd like to actually acknowledge a lot of the organizations that are here today, both private sector as well as the NGOs. I think USAID has great pleasure in actually collaborating with many of you. I think very highly of you. And I'd like to also thank and congratulate the organizers and supporters of this event because of your foresightedness and your generosity in bringing all of us here, because you know what? We need to work together on this. It has to be a partnership approach. There's no silver bullet. We got to do it together, and the private sector is really, really key in all of this. The U.S. government stands ready, committed to continue our support in the environment sector, for economic growth, for jobs, for incomes, but also for conservation of the natural resources that mean so much to this country and its people. We appreciate the opportunity to give our opinions and share our views with you. And I want to challenge everybody today to work together, to come up with solutions, ideas at least, partnerships, so that together we can tackle this and do something good for both Indonesia's economy